Hi, this is part 2 of Holy Week Retarded Christ-Psychotic Week. I continue. Now Octavius was the sole ruler because he died in 14. But already he's established he was the God now, the living God that has established the peace, which lasted amazing. It's like 150 years. It lasted the Pax Romana. And he continued the tradition of the Clemenza Caesaris, forgiving the sins. And now his temples were all over the place, identified with Jupiter. And that caused, it was completely controlled. And the rest of the other religions of the other gods were actually start being down. And a lot of the documents were burned, just like the Catholic Church and a lot of would do 500 years later. But all these other different things for the gods and different documents and stuff, they were all burned. And Augustus didn't have any rivals as a god now. But then, of course, it came Tiberius, and then after that came the crazy Caligula. As happened with all religions, all many important religions, there is the religion of the leaders. The leaders are the ones that control the religion. They are the ones who invent and create the religions. The gods and kings and all that, they control them. Well, Augustus, now the Father in heaven, which was actually Iulius Caesar with his comet and everything, it takes second place. People forget about that. Now the main guy was Augustus. And he is the one in all the temples. He was next to the Venus, and next to the mother of God became his mother, which is Venus, of course, mother of Iulius Caesar. But then everything is taking a life of its own. And there were many branches of the religion, of the cult of the Caesars, or the emperors, but main one of the guy that constructed the peace, that constructed all the empire, the altars, the altar of peace, everything, which was actually the divine Augustus. And it's kind of interesting that, you know what he said when he died? He said, "Did I acted well? Did I perform well?" Amazing. The guy was amazing. This book mentions the emperor worship and how the emperor was worshipped in every household and everything. But he doesn't connect Caesar and Christ at all. And this is a lot of archaeologists don't do that. Look at the coins. They all show the divinity of Augustus. Also in the vast Roman Empire, they personified everything. All the gods, you have the god of love, you have Attis, the god of vegetation, you have Cybele, the earth goddess, and they're represented by lady, even Victory versus winged lady, just name it. Even libido was represented by a figure of a person. They were personified everything. Anger was personified. So they were the gods, and they all had temples. In the meantime, the merchants, Jews, that were settled in the province of Judea, along the Palestinians, they didn't have a civilization itself. They adopted a lot of the religions of the places they were. And guess what's in Egypt 2,300 years ago? Alexander, the main king, that was the ancestor of Cleopatra, was Ptolemy Philadelphus. That was considered a god, adopting the religion of the Egyptians. And guess what happened? A lot of the Jews stopped giving the Jews a religion. The Jews didn't have a civilization, temple, nothing. He was just giving a religion, a little fairy tale, and it was called the Septuagint, the 70 book of Moses, all taken from the Egyptian religion. And they brought all that, and they had the idea there, and they lived in Alexandria. They had tremendous library. They have scientists, Greek scientists. It was amazing. And then the Romans adopted all that, and the Romans were merchants. The Jews were merchants, and they called the Christi, and they were running all over the empire. And in the time of Julius Caesar, of course, Julius Caesar protected them, protected their interest, and they loved them. But everybody hated them and envied them because they were so free, because they got information from all over the world because they were merchants. It happens today. Everybody is a merchant. You have to get a lot of learning from everybody, and they actually consider Julius Caesar the savior, and of course the Augustus also. But Augustus, at that time thanks to Tiberius and then Caligula, the Jews Here's the temple of the sacrifice Iulius Caesar Christ in the Roman Forum, and here I am. This is the way it looks today. Now, going back to the temple of Divus Iulius, the temple of Iulius Caesar, the Father, the Godfather, the Father in heaven. Well, everything, it became like a passion, like a play in a theater. Just like when Lincoln got assassinated in a theater, in the Fourth Theater, and the guy said, "Six Semper Tyrannos," you know, the booth. Well, Iulius Caesar, the Senate was meeting with Iulius Caesar in the theater of Pompey, his rival. And the interesting about it is that Pompey was also considered a god descendant of Neptune, wearing a trident. Well, this guy, Pompey, which he lost his head. His head was cut off and given to Iulius Caesar in a tray when he went to Egypt. Well, the same thing happened to John the Baptist. So Pompey became John the Baptist much later on in the Gospels, 400 years later. Well, everything convoluted and changed. So Iulius Caesar was killed in a theater. So it became the passion of Caesar. It's the same like it happened in the Passion of Christ with all the rest of fairy tales. But what happened is that everything changed. It changed to Jerusalem. And nothing happened in Jerusalem. Zero. Everything happened in the only holy city in the world, which was Rome. And guess what happened too? The treasure was kept in all the cities in antiquity, was kept in the temples. That's where you have the gold and things given to the gods by the faithful. So the first thing that actually Iulius Caesar when he went to during the Civil War and fighting Pompey and Pompey escaped Rome, he went to Rome. The first thing he went to go to the Temple of Saturn, where the money was kept. Well, guess what happened later on in the year 70 when during the conquest of Jerusalem? Guess what happened? It's in the Ark of Titus. And you see, they brought a lot of the gold from the temple, but the temple was a Roman temple with Roman divinities. It was not a Jewish temple at all. So what happened is that the Romans, they brought in triumph the menorah, which is the Vestal Virgin thing, the table of the sacred presence, which is a Roman thing, and the trumpet of a Roman thing that the Jews had adopted. The Jews, they didn't have any religion. So they adopted everything from the Romans. That's where the Jewish religion comes from. See, the so-called Jewish. So anyway, that's the reason it's depicted in the Ark of Titus. Because they were sacred things that were rescued from the Roman. The Jews were nomads. They're merchants. They go all over the place. They didn't have no civilization. You know, I mean, there's no evidence. There's no archaeological evidence. So they didn't have any temple. They have tabernacles. They have little tents, but they worship things on it. That's what they had. So, they adopt you one, retards, in Jerusalem, the city of nuts. You will never find a temple of Solomon. Zero. Everything is the god Augustus, Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, which the Jews worship, the Christians worship, and the retarded Muslims worship. Get over with it. That's where your God come from. The god Iulius Caesar Christ was killed the 15th of March. That was called the De Sanguinis, which is equivalent to Good Friday. The Romans call it the Day of Blood, and they observe it. They sacrifice they went to the temple. The Jews also, which love Iulius Caesar, they call that was in the day of Nisan, the month of Nisan of the lunar calendar that they have. And they observe it, and they call it Passover. Is the angel supposed to pass over the house of with the symbol of the lamb? And guess what? Jesus Christ is the lamb. Well, all the sacrifices were Roman religion. So the passion of Christ, the passion of Iulius Caesar became the passion of Christ, like a theater play, because it happened in a theater. And people start observing it. So that's the reason you have Passover at the same time, basically. But everything changed because the months change. It's not the same. But that's the reason you have Holy Week, which is taken from the passion of Iulius Caesar. Everything mutated. You have the Sea of Galilee. It never existed. You have Caesar fighting the Gauls and forgiving the sins, making the Gauls senators, the barbarian senators. That's the fishing of men. There were many Caesarean sects, which you can call them Christians now. And in 325, Constantine united everything created in the Catholic Church. That's where it comes from. Enjoy Naughty Week.